Meanwhile, back in China, they have a visitor, the President of Iran. He is there for a 3-day visit starting today. His name is Ebrahim Raisi. With him are his cabinet ministers. Raisi was reportedly sent a personal invite by Chinese President Xi Jinping. He has a host of meetings lined up, including talks with Xi and Chinese business delegations. Reports say Tehran hopes to sign deals worth $10 billion with China. What kind of deals? Railways, dams, power plants. Also on the agenda is the Iran nuclear deal, the one that the Americans junked under Donald Trump in 2018. Biden is trying to revive it, but it looks like a dead horse. Negotiations are stalled, which makes China's outreach to Iran all the more interesting and significant. Raisi's visit is the first by an Iranian president in nearly 2 decades, the first to China in 2 decades. Tehran attaches great importance to it.
From a political point of view, President Raisi's visit to China is of great importance and special significance. It shows the relations between the two countries continue to develop in a favorable political environment. The visit will reflect the political will of the leaders of the two countries on issues such as expanding bilateral relations and safeguarding common interests.
Ebrahim Raisi's visit comes as China and Iran are increasingly finding common ground. Not quite natural allies, but allies nonetheless. China has big ambitions in West Asia. Tehran is a vital cog in that plan, and it works for Iran too. Raisi has a lot on his plate at the moment. His country's nuclear program is under scrutiny. It is at odds with the Arab world, and the economy is down in the dumps. Tehran desperately needs money from the Chinese. Remember, the two countries signed a deal in 2021, Iran and China, a 25-year-long, $400 billion deal. Beijing promised more investments in Tehran across sectors, ports, railways, banking, you name it. All of this was in exchange for Iran's oil. So it's a win-win partnership, except for the tiny detail about China's money coming with major strings and a potential debt trap. But here's one more thing that works for them. They have a common enemy in the United States. In fact, this has become a major point of convergence. A slew of US sanctions have brought Iran and China closer than ever before. In fact, let me quote from what Ebrahim Raisi said ahead of his visit. Iran and China believe that unilateralism and violent measures, such as the imposition of unjust sanctions, are the main source of a world fraught with crises and insecurity. Both China and Iran are unanimous in stressing that all countries should work together to achieve true multilateralism, international justice, and a just international order in the world. So what do the growing China-Iran ties mean for the world, for the United States, and for countries like India that have trade, cultural, and strategic ties with Iran, not to mention the Chabahar port? They'll have to play very safely, make their moves carefully. Because at the moment, China seems to be the best bet for Iran. China continues to be Iran's largest trading partner. As per the last data available, total trade between the two sides stood at around $25 billion. China also continues to buy oil from Iran despite American sanctions. The exact figures are not known, but reports suggest it's been at record levels in the past few months. Remember, Iran accounts for roughly 24% of the oil reserves in West Asia. And China needs this oil to drive its economy. Around half of China's crude oil imports are from West Asia. In 2021, Beijing imported nearly 81 million metric tons of crude oil from the region. So alignment with Iran is a strategic decision. China is pushing to include Iran in the BRICS grouping. Currently, it has Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that is BRICS, BRICS. Both Russia and China now want Iran to join. What does that mean for the US? Not good news. Chinese money flowing into Iran means Tehran gets the revenue it wants desperately. It weakens the impact of American sanctions, and the US says this money will fund Iran's nuclear program. But what's in it for Beijing? More oil, for sure, and more influence in the region. China has been working on it, which explains the China-Arab summit last year. Xi Jinping flew all the way to Riyadh to meet with top leaders of the Arab world. Together, they vowed to strengthen ties. Of course, the Saudis are on the other side of the power divide in West Asia. They're not friends with Iran, but China is working with them too. Reports say China signed 34 new investment agreements worth $50 billion with Saudi Arabia. This also shows China's growing footprint and America's waning influence in the region. As for India, it has been deepening its ties with its West Asian partners. Until recently, Iran was a key supplier of oil to India. It supplied around 10% of India's oil needs. That's before the American sanctions came in. India also invested around $85 million in developing the first phase of the Chabahar port. And this port is very crucial. It will give India direct access to Central Asia. It will help India circumvent Pakistan, the Chabahar port. Now, with China's entry, India will have to be watchful. Also ensure that this project, Chabahar, is completed on time. As for Tehran, it wants to balance ties. Reports say it also offered a China-style strategic deal to India last year. That deal focuses on attracting Indian investments. It is reportedly under consideration. So long story short, Raisi's visit to China has wider implications. This is much more than a regular diplomatic visit. It's about who holds a strategic edge over the other and what that means for existing players.